Right? What you said, the technology, equitable access, a lot of companies shy of sharing that. But at the same time, equitable access to the medicines, a lot of companies they give incentivized price to some of the countries where they require they give very high subsidies. Not the companies what I'm associated, but what I read it in the publications and all that. A lot of big pharma, the global pharma, they give it to the countries in a very, very subsidized prices.
Since we're conscious that we have to be responsible for your time, we will ensure that this session ends at this point of time. I know you have a point to make, but you just have absolutely run out of time.
I'm just following what Sarat said. We have to give a compensation.
So I can see exactly 15 seconds, sir. You have not spoken.
I just take 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Industrial ecosystem is very important. 70% of Fortune 500 companies in US are incorporated in the state of Delaware. So we should look at that. It's a very interesting case.
Sure. So, obviously, we need to budget a half a day for a discussion like this and not a couple of hours. Thank you for your wholehearted participation. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done, and the work to be done comes under we. The question is always which one of us is we, right? So on this, very happy note, thank you for your participation, and thank you Deepangita for convening such a session and once more an outstanding ITMC. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for
video.
Viju.
So I also request Startup TV team to come to the ball for the Global by India.
Yeah.
Wait, sir.
Wait, sir.
Hey, jaldi karo. Opportunity lost.
You have to say we have
Smile, please. Smile, please.
So smile, please.
Yeah.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to MyStartup TV.
Continuing the celebration of partnerships, we would like to acknowledge some of our extremely valuable partnerships, long-standing partnerships, and I'd invite Deepangita on stage to recognize and celebrate some of our partners.
We have been working with BIRAC right from the stage when BIRAC was a project, before BIRAC was established. So we felt that if we have to talk of one institution which has helped build partnerships, just not with IKP, IKP is a partner of BIRAC, but there are several other institutions. If we have to talk of one institution in India that has shown the power of partnerships for building innovation, it is BIRAC. And we would like to invite Dr. Jitendra Kumar. And I think we have also Dr. Shubharanjan Chakravarti and Dr. Shishendu Mukherjee. particularly, Manish is not here. Yeah, so.
విజయ్ అక్కడికి పోయినప్పుడు ఆయన పెట్టు విజయ్ ఆ సైడ్కి జరిగి తీసుకున్నాం కొంచెం Hands down.
12 years is a long time, and I think what Byrak has done is absolutely stupendous, and really gives all of us a lot of encouragement. We also want to celebrate a partnership that is just a year old, not even a year old, but it has a very long-standing impact on the startup regulatory system. It's a partnership with JS's Academy of Higher Education that we have forged, and we have Dr. Patil with us. And this is a global regulatory forum that IAB has set up with JS's Academy, and we want to celebrate the partnership. Thanks everyone. With this, we close this session, and we have a back-to-back round table. There are two round tables, one on responsible biomanufacturing, the other on One Health. You would know which session to go to. So coffee will be served at your round table, so don't worry about that. And I know many of you, even if you're not participating, you can be observers. So please join the round table. And after 6 p.m. we have a Byrak GBI Roadshow, the Global Business Bio India. You know, Global Bio India. And I was saying bio has to be there, B has to be Byrak. Global Bio India Conference, a roadshow of that. That's at the Novotel Ballroom, which is just in the next building, the Novotel Hotel. That's from 6:15 to 7, and that is followed by the awards at the Lords at 7:15. So we'll all see you at the round table, at the GBI Roadshow, and the award ceremony, and followed by dinner. Thank you.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.
So the first panel, the first plenary set the stage for the discussion. So we had, Jayashree, who scared us a little bit with some of her slides. And then we had Sharad telling us how, the way to address these problems is to start by taking a panga. And then in the second plenary, we engaged with the counterintuitive thought that constraints can be sources of creativity. And now we're all set to explore the possibility of partnerships. This is actually a fairly important aspect of the whole thing, because we are talking about the challenges of Anthropocene. When we talk about that, we usually use words such as planet scale and global. So it means two things. One is, of course, it refers to the massive scale of the challenges. But the second thing, it also indicates that boundaries are not very relevant. When we're talking about changes in temperature or pollution, line of control and line of actual control may not matter that much. So to also address these challenges in an impactful way and at scale, we need to create partnerships across traditional boundaries between governments and business, between for-profits and not-for-profits, between innovators and bureaucrats, and such stuff. And this means that we are going to have individuals and institutions which are wired in a certain way, with different kinds of goals, different incentive systems, different cultures, who have to work together and continue to work together. And such partnerships can get quite complex, conceptualizing them and executing them. And to explore this, we have got three remarkable people who are going to be sharing their experiences in leveraging partnerships in different areas. We're going to have Professor Mahesh Shankaran, professor at NCBS, who will be talking about working across continents to save the savannas. Then we'll have Dr. Ashish Nimgaonkar talking about scaling impact by innovation, biomedical innovation. And then we'll have Dr. Chintan Vaishnav talk about forging global partnerships to nurture startup ecosystems. Chintan is not able to join us today, so he has kindly sent us a video with some of his remarks, and we'll play that. First, I'd like to invite Dr. Mahesh Shankaran on stage. Mahesh, please. So Dr. Mahesh Shankaran is Professor of Ecology and Ecosystems at NCBS, Bangalore. He's one of the researchers whose work is helping reshape our view on the role of ecosystems and climate change. He got his PhD from Syracuse University, and he also did his postdoctoral work in US and UK before joining NCBS in 2009. He has recently played a pivotal role in an IPCC publication, which highlighted the work of biodiversity and ecosystems in the relationship to climate change. And his work has also been recognized by his fellowships. He's recently been elected to the Fellowship of the Indian Academy of Science in 2020 and the Indian National Science Academy in 2021.
Thank you for asking me to be a part of this session. And in the interest of full disclosure, I must say that this is an entirely different kind of audience from the one that I'm used to. And hopefully my talk will sort of meet the remit that was given to me. So I was asked to talk about cross-continental collaborations that we're involved with in terms of savanna ecology. And well, we work with a lot of ecologists from across the world, in Africa, South America, Australia, and so on and so forth, addressing questions of very basic scientific relevance, right? But I thought that's probably less of an interest to this group. So what I thought I'd talk about today is a kind of challenge that all of us, or all savanna ecologists working across the globe seem to face. We've written about it, we've written policy pieces, we've written, perspectives in sort of high impact papers and journals and so on and so forth. But the problem is, we keep shouting, but nobody seems to be listening. So I really don't know what the answer to this. We've been trying to collaborate to get this message across, and it seems to be one not of uptaking new technologies or ideas, but of unlearning what seems to be ingrained in many of us. And I think that's really a hard problem. I don't know what the answer to it is. So what I thought I'd do is actually just highlight the challenge that we've been talking about, and then, hopefully there will be avenues for collaboration and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to talk about is actually the issue with planting trees in these open ecosystems that we work in. I don't want to start off on a negative note, but just to set the context, people have already talked about this in the morning, right? But we know fossil fuel combustion and land use changes have caused an increase in greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere. This is the famous Keeling curve, which shows CO2 concentrations on the top of Mauna Loa. It's been the longest continuous measurements of CO2 that we have. And as you can see, CO2 concentrations seem to be increasing over time. We all know this, and currently it's about 420 parts per million. And because of this increase in greenhouse gases, we know temperatures globally have also been changing. This is a figure that shows global temperatures over time, and every successive decade has been warmer than the previous. 8 of the last hottest years have been in the last decade. And 2023, we've hit records in terms of the summer temperatures, hottest ever recorded, and we're probably on track to break annual records too. Time will tell. And as Nelson was talking about early in the morning, the thing is ocean temperatures are also going up. And the NASA webpage had an article a few months ago saying the ocean has a fever because they recorded the highest temperatures ever in July this year. And as you can see the black line, these warmer temperatures are continuing, right? So this is a bit of a problem. Possibly we are in an El Nino phase that can possibly extend into next year, and this has major consequences for coral reefs and ocean life and so on and so forth, right? And the thing is, governments over the last couple of decades have recognized that we seem to be in this sort of pickle with respect to climate change, and so we need to do something about it. And so there's been this call for climate action. And there are 2 basic approaches here. One is technological solutions to actually reduce the emissions in the first place, and also probably reduce atmospheric CO2 concentrations through carbon capture and so on. And the other one that's been put out quite a bit are these nature-based solutions, right? And one caveat here is, while nature-based solutions are necessary, they are unlikely to be sufficient in terms of mitigating climate change in the absence of any technological solutions, right? But I'm going to be focusing a little bit on these nature-based solutions. And one nature-based solution that seems to have, that seems to be all the rage right now is tree planting to sequester carbon from the atmosphere, right? And this has led to many initiatives like the Trillion Trees program to plant 1 trillion trees across the globe. And more locally, we can see, these different governments from different states are trying to plant 22 crores of trees in a day, or even, 1 lakh saplings in the arid, cold deserts of, the Ladakh region. And while reforestation, that is the planting of trees in areas that the trees were there earlier, is definitely something we need to be focusing on, afforestation, which is the planting of trees in areas that they weren't there earlier, can be problematic, right? And which are these kind of areas where we need to be a little cautious when we are planting trees? And those are the kinds of systems that we work on, which are grasslands and savanna ecosystems. Now, the term savanna, I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but it refers, well, it's a 16th century word. Well, it was first recorded in the 16th century, and it's derived from a Carib Amerindian word, which means treeless plain. But in its current avatar, it refers to systems that have both trees and grasses. So you have a continuous grass layer, and you have a discontinuous layer of trees, right? And the reason why people tend to plant trees in savannas, and a lot of these tree planting initiatives are focused on these open natural ecosystems, which are savannas and grassland. Why is that? For many reasons. One, if you want to plant a tree, you're looking for an open space. And here's a lot of open space where you can actually go and plant trees. The other is this outdated concept of a climax community, which, people tend to think that forests are the climax, and systems like these are actually degraded forests, that humans have gone sometime in the past, cut these trees, and made these systems open. And so these are degraded systems that actually, need to be restored. But both our work and the work of colleagues across the globe has shown that savannas are not degraded ecosystems. They're in fact very ancient ecosystems. They evolved in the late Miocene, about 5 to 10 million years ago. And they're fairly widespread, and these are not degraded forests. The other issue major issue facing savannas and grasslands, particularly in the Indian context, is they're classified as wastelands administratively, right? This is a fallout from a colonial legacy. But the fact is, if they're classified as wastelands, then they can easily be diverted to other uses, such as tree planting initiatives, right? But like I said, savannas are actually fairly ancient ecosystems. They're very widespread. They cover about 20% of the Earth's land surface and more than half the area of the southern continents. They support a large fraction of the world's human population and a majority of its rangeland and livestock. And for ecologists like me, they're home to the greatest diversity and density of wild herbivores and carnivores of any ecosystem on Earth. Now, most of you, I mean, if you watch National Geographic or Discovery, you'd have seen, the first image that comes to of a savanna is the Serengeti. That's, these vast open plains teeming with ungulates. But that's not the only place where you have savannas. Like I said, savannas are fairly widely distributed, and we also have them in the Indian context. But they tend to be a little bit more wooded compared to systems in Africa, right? So the savannas of India, these are again photos of Indian savanna ecosystems. They host very iconic species, many of which are threatened. You have the black buck, you have foxes, you have hyenas, and you have the great Indian bustard there on the left, of which there are only about 100 individuals left remaining in the wild. It's a highly threatened bird. It was a contender for the national bird of India, but if rumors are to be believed, then it lost out to the peacock because, a simple spelling mistake or a mispronunciation can lead to, embarrassment for, the country. So anyway, so all of these iconic species are characteristic of these open savanna ecosystems. But the problem is they're not as protected when compared to forests. So many of these grasslands in India are actually not protected. Right. And when we look at savanna ecosystems, typically you see an open space, right? And so there's no carbon. You can't actually see any carbon being sequestered above ground. So people tend to think that savannas and grasslands don't play a role in the global carbon cycle. But that's not true. If you look at net primary production, that's the amount of carbon that's fixed per unit area per year. Savannas are actually, they account for about 30% or about a third of the carbon that's being fixed by the terrestrial biosphere is actually occurring in these grasslands and savannas. And, compared to tropical forests, which are obviously, the highest in terms of fixing carbon, savannas sequester about 7 tons per hectare per year. So it's not trivial, right? So they do play an important role in the global carbon cycle. But interestingly, most of this carbon is actually stored below ground. Savannas have much, much more carbon under the ground than above the ground. So because we don't see that much carbon above ground, we tend to think they're actually not useful as carbon sinks. But, tropical savannas store almost as much as tropical rainforests in terms of soil carbon. And if you look at temperate grasslands, or, that's even more. So most of the carbon in these ecosystems is actually below ground. And that's something we need to keep in mind. Yeah? And so the problem, like I said, is everybody and their uncle seems to be going out and planting trees in these ecosystems. And this is problematic for many reasons, right? So tree planting in these ecosystems can actually be a form of degradation rather than restoration. And like I said, there have been a lot of papers written about this in recent years. But again, there seems to be some difficulty with these concepts actually being sort of absorbed and put into practice. Why is it problematic? Why is tree planting in these ecosystems problematic? For one, plantations in these regions often fail, and they don't bring the anticipated carbon benefits. Now you have to put a lot of effort and water into actually getting these saplings and seedlings to survive in these ecosystems in the first place. And the second thing is fire and herbivory are integral parts of these ecosystems. So many of the saplings are either eaten by herbivores or they're burnt, and they tend to die, right? So many of the plantations actually fail. The other thing is loss of soil carbon. When you dig pits to plant these trees, you tend to lose soil carbon. And some studies have shown that actually, when you plant trees in these systems, you tend to lose carbon from the soil such that the net amount of carbon in the ecosystem actually goes down, which kind of beats the whole purpose of planting trees there in the first place, right? We are not really sure why that occurs and when that occurs, but it has been known to occur. The third thing, and somebody was talking about water earlier today, is that thirsty trees compromise hydrological cycles. Trees transpire much more water than grasses, with the result that when you plant trees in many of these ecosystems, it actually affects the hydrological cycle